Doug Austin, and I'm the editor of eDiscovery Today, a daily blog about eDiscovery, information governance, cybersecurity, data privacy, and artificial intelligence trends, best practices, and case law. Welcome to another edition of eDiscovery Today's Thought Leader interview series, where we interview thought leaders in eDiscovery and related legal technologies. Today's guest is a veteran of legal technology and eDiscovery who has years of experience leading teams and providing legal services from the corporate, law firm, and provider perspectives. Josh Kreamer of Seedless. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you having me.
Oh, you bet. I'm glad you could join us. Before we get started, let me introduce Josh. Josh is the founder and CEO of Seedless, which was founded last year, and he'll tell you a little bit more about his company here in a moment. Before that, Josh was at AstraZeneca for over 6 years, where he led the drug maker's eDiscovery program and later expanded its scope to include a variety of in-source services designed to significantly reduce legal costs and transform the legal function from cost center to innovation leader. In 2022, he was named on Relativity's annual list of the legal industry's AI visionaries. Josh previously worked at the global law firm Winston and Strawn and was an e-discovery manager at Discover Ready, which is now Concilio, before that. He's also a founding member of the Legal Data Intelligence Project, or LDI. Josh is also a graduate of Harvard Law School and a member of the Washington, D.C. Bar. Ready to get started, Josh?
I am. Thank you for that introduction.
Oh, you bet. All right, so let's start with this. So you've been in a leadership position in eDiscovery and other legal services for both an Am Law 50 firm and a major corporation. So why did you decide to move from those positions and found an AI company focused on generating fictional data to support enterprise AI initiatives?
Uh, the main reason is I found a problem that nobody else was solving that I had an idea of how to solve. So there's obviously lots and lots of organizations providing legal services. There's lots of different legal tech companies out there doing e-discovery, doing legal research, doing other functions with AI, but there's really nobody making data specifically for highly regulated industries like pharma, like legal, like finance. And seeing that there was really nobody in that space, and yet it's a huge problem for most practitioners and legal tech companies, and for most pharma companies, which I saw firsthand at AstraZeneca, I felt that I could deliver the most value to our industry by starting something new, a new kind of solution.
Okay. So for those who don't know about Seedless, what does the company do specifically, and how can it benefit organizations that are looking to implement AI solutions?
So we generate what we call fictional data, and it's unstructured data. Think emails, chat messages, documents, other kinds of communications, as well as industry-specific documents like electronic medical records, loan underwriting documents, and deposition transcripts, all for the purpose of enabling demonstration and evaluation of modern AI tools. So on the enterprise side, they can better evaluate tools that they're thinking about bringing in. On the provider side, they can better demonstrate the function and highlight the features of their tools with data that really looks like the data of their end customers so that they can relate to it. So they go from, this looks pretty good, I hope it works for us, to these folks really understand our problem specifically, and this will be a good solution for us. And that ultimately drives better converting and faster converting sales cycles for a lot of legal providers.
Yeah, I can relate. I was just at IltaCon a couple of weeks ago, and they're still using the old, many of them are still using the old Enron data set, which we'll get to in a moment. But absolutely, we do need data that reflects what organizations are doing these days, for sure. Certainly the conferences I've been to and things I've been reading online, the AI buzzword for 2025 seems to be agentic AI. Yeah, so what are your thoughts about that, and how is Seedless looking to address that trend?
Sure. So I don't think there's been a great definition of agentic AI that's really been adopted. We think of it in terms of a discrete unit of AI that operates autonomously from the rest of the other discrete units of AI. Almost like an AI bot that's separate from other AI bots, that doesn't have the same knowledge necessarily, that plays a different role from those. We utilize AI agents acting as fictional employees of a fictional company in running simulations, and that's how we generate our data. So if we were wanting to replicate a meeting like the meeting that you and I are having right now, we would have two people in similar roles to ours, and they would actually conduct a meeting over Teams or over Zoom. And the transcript from that meeting or the notes from that meeting or whatever would be the normal byproduct of a meeting like that is the data that we generate. So and each AI agent is a separate fictional employee with separate domain knowledge and separate information and business processes that they're designed to carry out. So we definitely harness the use of agentic AI, but we're not necessarily trying to ride the trend of that. It's sort of built into how we manufacture our data. We find it to be a useful construct. We don't think that it's necessarily that the all being solution to everything that some people see it as. And we don't even think it's really that well defined.
Yeah, I definitely agree that there's different definitions out there that I've seen as well. I thought yours was pretty on point there. So, um, so back to I mentioned the Enron data set. Craig Ball recently wrote an article about that. Long used. I mean, we've been using it for what, gosh, a decade and a half, something like that, and how it's beyond time to retire it as a test and demo set for eDiscovery. So. What are your thoughts about that, and how can Seedless help the industry develop one or more data sets that better reflect the data we see in organizations today?
Yeah, so the reliance on the Enron data set in the legal space is a big driver for Seedless because we think it has several problems as it applies to modern demonstration and evaluation of new tools. One is that it doesn't include modern data types. It doesn't include things like modern attachments. It doesn't include chat messages of any sort. It's mostly an email and attachment set only. The second is that it is really it has a few specific stories built into it, but it's not for everybody. It's not for, it's an energy company that went through a fraudulent situation and ultimately a bankruptcy. That doesn't apply to every end user. That doesn't apply well in a pharma context. That doesn't apply well for maybe a conglomerated construction business or for an automotive business. And so it's not always fit for purpose. And then finally, it we've really shoehorned it to be all things to all people, but in reality, it doesn't necessarily have all of the scenarios that would make it fit for purpose to really properly demonstrate modern tools, tools like those that are used for like AI for legal research, AI for e-discovery, for fact finding and investigations. Sure, it's full of facts, but they're facts that everybody knows, and it has a staleness to it too that we think has gone beyond unattractive to becoming a turnoff to potential customers. They see the Enron data set, they automatically think you're a little behind the times just by using it. And yet other alternatives that are out there are really no better. We've seen like the Jeb Bush data set. We've heard about people using recently the JFK files that have been released recently. All of that has both political baggage and is no more fit for purpose for a given industry than really the Enron data set is. So we completely agree with Craig Ball. We think it's time to retire it. We've given a lot of thought to maybe publicly releasing some data sets for the industry to use as sort of a base level because what we're finding is our customers want subscriptions where they can get lots and lots of data sets for lots of different purposes. And so for us to release a data set publicly would not be necessarily cannibalizing our business as we had originally kind of been concerned about. Like, oh, once a data set or two gets out, that'll become the new Enron data set, and then there won't be business for us. It turns out that for purposes of product development, for purposes of evaluation, for purposes of training, even for human training, people are interested in using this data. So, like at a law firm, it can be difficult to train all the associates because different cases have different conflict of interest profiles. and not everybody can see everything from every case. So even for the purposes of like training associates on modern approaches, this data can be useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been saying needed to get rid of the Enron data set or replace it for years, but we just haven't had a suitable replacement. I think I recently found out about an opioid data set, but of course that may be great for searching, but it's all PDF, so it doesn't reflect the data and the structure that we expected. So certainly, if you all decided you ultimately were going to put together an industry data set, I would love to cover it and promote it because it's been long needed for us for sure.
For sure.
Um, so MIT recently, I think it was just last week, re released a report that says only 5% of AI initiatives are producing measurable returns, which I think technically means that 95% of them are failing. So why do you think that is, and what can be done to increase the success percentage for AI implementation projects?
So I think separating to some extent the MIT article from your question is helpful. I think the MIT article had some problems in the methodology that they used. There were some issues in the background information that was available. They only surveyed 52 organizations and drew an industry-wide conclusion from that. Setting that aside, a lot of AI initiatives do fail. And we think that one of the key reasons is because they're not using the right data to evaluate the tools before they bring them in, because they're relying on really generic demos and generic shows of effectiveness rather than the industry on the customer side expecting solutions that meet the needs of their data and that meet the needs in the context of their data. And I think if there was better data being used for demos and evaluations, you would have less failure rate in a lot of these POCs and pilots.
Yeah, that's certainly, I think that's been one of the things that we've seen a lot is really how do you evaluate these products effectively? And the data is certainly a big part of that. So, speaking of data, you're a foundational member of the Legal Data Intelligence Initiative. So, how's the work that Seedless is doing tie into initiatives like LDI for the legal community?
Yeah, so we see it as being very complementary to LDI initiatives. Obviously, the D in LDI is for data, and we're providing new kinds of data that's enabling practitioners not only to train, but to bring in the right tools so that they can apply LDI processes. Ultimately, tools are only effective to the extent they can fit into processes that drive value. And we're trying to create data that will ensure that those processes do, in fact, produce value. And so that people are not reaching for the wrong tool set when they go to solve a problem, but rather reaching for the right tool set because they had the right data to tell them this is what worked and this is what didn't work. So we see it as being very complementary, and we think that practitioners across the LDI spectrum can benefit from using what we call fictional data to evaluate new tools, and on the provider side, to be able to demonstrate their features and functionality.
All right. So last question that I t typically ask, what else would you like to tell our audience about what you and the team at Seedless are doing?
Just that we're creating data that is super realistic, that really has the look and feel of the kinds of data that you would expect to see. And that we right now, and as you kind of pointed out through the Enron example, right now we're in a state of data scarcity. Even though it's kind of like being in the ocean and dying of thirst because there's water all around, but you can't drink it. The world is creating a lot of data, but because of privacy concerns, sensitivities around sharing that data, and IT security concerns, that data is not really usable for these purposes. Once you shift to a place of data abundance, which is something that we can provide, you suddenly find all kinds of additional uses for data, from training people to product development to internal testing to evaluation of third-party tools. And once you have sort of so much color is added, we are the analogy we use is imagine a world that only had a nonfiction, where you only had nonfiction sections of bookstores or of libraries. Now imagine you add a fiction section, all the different color and vibrancy that that brings, all the different use cases. Right now, because we've been so constrained by just having this one data set to use and that's made available, there's a sense of scarcity and a sense of like, why would I ever need more than one data set? But once you can have as much data as you want, suddenly there's a lot of good reasons for it.
That makes sense. All right. I want to thank my guest, Josh Kreamer of Seedless. Thanks, Josh.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
And I want to thank all of you for tuning in to another edition of eDiscovery Today's Thought Leader interview series. See you next time on the eDiscovery Today video network. Goodbye.
Thanks, Doug.